falcon that eats from your hand still has to choose to come back, your grandfather says, and lifts the bird onto your arm. You are 5 years old, and the arm is wrapped to the elbow in a leather glove built for a grown man. The falcon's name is Najma, which in your grandfather's language means the star, and she weighs almost nothing, and her talons find the one seam where the leather has worn thin. Behind you, a jet cools on a private strip your father owns, in a country your grandfather more or less pulled out of the sand with a drill and a signature. The falconer is a Bedouin named Salem, who has kept this family's birds for 31 years, and he tells you to hold still, so you hold still. Everything you can see from this dune belongs to your father. Everything your father can see belongs to the name. This is your life at every level of being born into it. 7 floors, from the nursery to the head of the table, and this is the exact price of a life in which you will never once have to want for anything and never once get to choose. Level 1, the Falcon. You are 5 years old and you do not yet know the word for what you are. The palace has a wing for the children and a wing for the falcons, and the falcons are treated better. Najma lives in a room with a thermostat set to the mountains she was never born in, and a man whose only job is her. You are allowed to feed her because your grandfather believes a boy should learn the 2 things a hawk teaches: that a thing can be kept without ever being owned, and that everything, if you feed it right, comes home. You do not go to school. School comes to you in the person of a Scottish tutor named Mr. Callum, who arrives on a Sunday and is gone by the following Sunday of the next season, and after him an Egyptian woman for the Quran and a French woman for the piano you will never touch again after 12. There are 41 people employed inside the walls, and you know maybe 9 of their names. The rest are a kind of weather. They arrive, they smooth the world in front of you, they leave. Your 6th birthday has 400 guests and a cake flown in cold from Paris, and a man who does nothing but tune the fountains, and you spend the entire afternoon under a table with the falconer's grandson, a boy named Yusuf, who is your age and whose father works the kennels, and Yusuf is the only real friend you will ever make without a lawyer somewhere in the room. When you are 8, his family is quietly moved to a different property. No one tells you why. No one tells you anything. You learn early that in your house the answer to a question is the absence of the person who made you ask it. You have 2 brothers, and you are raised beside them, the way 3 racehorses are raised in adjacent stalls, fed identically, watched constantly, and understood, from the first, to be in a contest none of you agreed to enter. Your mother you see for 1 hour after the evening prayer, and she smells of a French perfume that is discontinued, that your father buys the last of the world's stock of, so that she will always smell of the year they were happy. When you are 7, your father takes you to the top floor of the tower he built downtown, glass on every side, and he points. Not at anything, at all of it. He says a thing you will not understand for 30 years. He says, "None of this is yours. You are its." Then he buys you an ice cream from a machine that was installed that morning because he mentioned once on the drive over that you liked it. You will spend the rest of your life discovering that the ice cream was the sentence and the tower was only the punctuation. Level 2, the departure. You are 12 years old and they are sending you away. The school is on a lake in Switzerland above a town called Lausanne, and it costs more per year than the average family in your father's country earns in a decade, and this is considered the responsible choice. You cry in the car to the airfield, and Salam, who has come to see you off because your father is in Jakarta, tells you the falcon cries too, the first winter, and comes back the strongest. You do not believe him. You are 12. At the school there are 42 boys, and every one of them is a version of you. The Nigerian oil son, the Indonesian timber son, 2 Russians whose fathers cannot fly to certain countries, a Greek shipping boy named Stavros who becomes the closest thing to a brother you will have, and whom you will not speak to for 11 years after a business dispute between your fathers that neither of you started and neither of you can end. Your allowance is set at $40,000 a month, and you are 12, so you do not spend it. You just watch it arrive, a number with no shape. The housemaster, an Englishman named Mr. Feltham, treats all of you with a flat, expensive politeness that you mistake for respect and later understand was the careful handling of livestock that will one day own the pasture. He is not unkind. He simply knows what you are before you do. There is one afternoon that never leaves you. You are 13 and a day boy at the school. A scholarship kid named Marco, whose father drives a delivery van in the town below, sees the watch on your wrist, a thing your uncle sent for no reason, worth more than the school itself, and he does not envy it. He laughs at it, a short surprise laugh, and says, "What would you even do if all of it went away tomorrow?" You have no answer. You are 13, and you have never had the answer, and you will not have it at 42. That laugh does something the 2 Russians and the timber son never could. It shows you a door in the wall of your life, a door marked some other kind of man, and it shows you that the door is painted on. You learn to ski in Verbier and to sail in Antibes and to say my father in 4 languages. You learn that the plane will always be there. You learn, without anyone telling you, that homesickness is a thing that happens to people who have a home in the singular and you have 7, and so you feel it everywhere and nowhere, a low hum under every room for the rest of your life. Level 3. The Erasure. You are 19 years old and you have just found out what the money is actually for. It is 3 a.m. in Monaco and there is a car, a matte gray thing your father did not buy you but did not stop you from buying, wrapped around the concrete of a tunnel wall on the road down from the casino. You are not badly hurt. The valet in the passenger seat, a local named Theo, who is 22 and was only showing you the road, will not walk correctly again. You remember his face. You will always remember his face. By 7 that morning, a man you have never met is in your suite. His name is Farouk, and his title is nothing, and he does everything. He is on the phone in French, then Arabic, then English. By 9, there is a lawyer named Émile Perrin. By noon, there is a number, and the number is 2.3 million euros, and it is paid before you have eaten, and Theo's family signs a page that says the accident did not happen the way it happened. The police report describes a driver who is not you. The 2 paragraphs that ran online at 4 a.m. are gone by 1 p.m., and the journalist who wrote them is offered, that same week, a very good job at a magazine your family quietly funds. You wait for your father to shout. He does not shout. He does something worse. He looks at you across the long table at breakfast the next morning, buttering bread, and he says, "This is the last cheap one. They get more expensive as you get older." Then he goes back to the bread. That is the morning you understand the machine. It is not that the family has enough money to fix a thing. It is that the money exists. In part, precisely so that boys like you can break the world and never once hear it break. The falcon eats from the hand. You have never once, in 19 years, felt the seam wear thin under your own foot. You did not know there was a seam, now you know. And knowing does not make you free. It makes you careful, which is not the same thing, and you will spend a decade confusing the two. Level 4. The Arrangement. You are 26 years old, and you are getting married to a woman you have met 3 times. Her name is Latifa, and she is the second daughter of a family that controls the ports your family needs and cannot buy. And so instead of buying the ports, your father buys the alliance, and the alliance has your face on it, and hers. She is intelligent in a way that frightens the men around her into calling her difficult. She studied law at a university in Boston and came home because coming home was the arrangement, the same as it was for you, and on the second of your 3 meetings. In a garden with 2 chaperones pretending to admire the roses, she says the truest thing anyone has said to you in years. She says, "Neither of us is the person the other one is marrying. We are both the treaty." The wedding is 4 days and costs a figure that is never said aloud. A singer is flown from Cairo. A cousin arrives on a plane that another cousin, insulted, tries to top the next day. There are 1,100 guests, and you can name perhaps 30. Your father dances once with his mother, the only time you will ever see him surrender the weight in his shoulders, and Salem is there at the edge of it. Old now, and when he catches your eye, he does the small thing he did when you were 5 and holding the bird. He opens his hand, slowly, palm up. Steady. Let it stay because it wants to. You and Latifa build, over years, a thing that is not the love in the songs, but is not nothing. You have 3 children. You are, on paper and in the family's books, a success, a functioning joint, a load the structure can lean on, and late at night, in the enormous quiet of a house with staff asleep in a separate wing, you sometimes lie awake next to a woman you were assigned and feel a tenderness so specific and so unchosen that you do not have a word for it, and you think, this too was arranged, and it worked anyway, and you cannot tell if that is a mercy or the final proof that nothing in your life was ever going to be yours. Level 5. The Fund. You are 34 years old, and they have finally handed you money you are allowed to move. The family office is called the Diwan, and it sits on 3 floors of a building in Mayfair with no sign on the door. And it does not manage millions. It manages a little over $60 billion, and the oil is now the smallest and least interesting part of it. There is a port authority in East Africa, a stake in a chip company outside Taipei, a quarter of a football club, a third of a fashion house, a skyscraper in Manhattan you have never entered, farmland in Australia the size of a small European country. Your grandfather pulled it out of the sand. Your father turned the sand into everything that is not sand. And now they hand you a corner of it, a fund inside the fund, and they watch. You are good at it. This is the surprise of your life. You have a nerve for it, a stillness in a falling market that the traders around you do not have, and you understand now what the Falcon was for. You were trained, from 5, to hold still while a wild thing gripped your arm, and the markets are only that, a wild thing on your arm, and everyone else flinches and you do not. In your third year at the Dewan, a company you have quietly built a stake in, a logistics firm in Rotterdam, 11,000 employees, comes to you before it comes to the banks, and over one dinner and a handshake you take control of the whole of it for 1.1 billion. And a man across the table named Hendricks, who founded it in a garage 40 years before you were born, shakes your hand and cannot look at you because he has just sold the only thing he ever made to a boy who has never made anything and never had to. You feel, for a moment, the exact shape of Marco's laugh from the schoolyard. Then the moment passes, because it always passes, because your whole life is engineered so that nothing lands. You buy a racehorse for 4.2 million pounds because you can, and win the Ark with it, and feel nothing. You buy a flat in One Hyde Park for 95 million and sleep in it 11 nights across 4 years. You give, in a single wire, 30 million to a hospital in your father's country, and your name goes on the wing, and it is the closest you come to the feeling other men describe, and even that you cannot be sure is not just the name buying itself a softer word. Your father visits the office once, walks the floor, says almost nothing, and on his way out he stops at your desk and looks at the screens and says the second sentence you will carry forever. He says, "Good. Now the hard part." The hard part is that it never lets you go. You think he means the work, he means the name. You will not know the difference until he is gone. Level 6. The succession. You are 41 years old and your father is dying in a hospital in London that the family does not own but for 6 weeks essentially becomes. There is a floor cleared, there is a specialist flown from Houston and another from Tokyo, and it does not matter. And everyone in that corridor knows it does not matter, and the money that has erased so many things stands at the foot of the bed and erases nothing at all. This is the fact you were never taught, because no one who could teach it survived to. There is a seam in every glove. Yours has just found your own foot, at last, at 41. The question in the corridor is not grief, not yet. The question is you, and your 2 brothers, and a cousin named Tariq who has spent 20 years being useful in exactly the rooms you found beneath you. There are lawyers. There are conversations held in the third person about men who are standing right there. Your older brother wants the title and does not want the work. Your younger brother wants neither and is dangerous for exactly that reason. Tariq wants all of it and has quietly earned the loyalty of the men who actually move the money while you were winning races. Your father, 4 days before the end, when the room is finally empty, takes your wrist in a hand that has almost no grip left. The same gesture, reversed. 50 years ago, his father set a bird on your arm and told you a kept thing still has to choose. Now he holds your arm and he says, "They will offer you the chair. Sit in it, and understand it is a cage that looks like a throne, and the only free man in this family died the year I was born, and he died poor." Then he closes his eyes. You sit with him? Outside, London goes on, not knowing, and somewhere in the Emirate, in a climate-controlled room, an old falcon that has outlived 3 of her keepers waits on a perch for a boy who is now a man they are about to name. Level 7. The name. You are 42 years old, and you are the name now. They put you in the chair. Tariq took the title he was owed at the top of the fund, and you let him, because your father taught you the last lesson without meaning to. The man who wants the whole thing has never once held a wild bird and felt it decide. You sit at the head of a table that seats 40, in a country your grandfather signed into being, and men who ran the world before you were born now wait for your face to move before they move theirs. You are, by any number anyone can count, one of the most powerful private men alive. And you have 3 children, and the eldest is 5, and last week you stood him on a dune with his arm wrapped to the elbow in a glove built for a grown man, and you set a falcon on it, and you heard your grandfather's voice come out of your own mouth. Word for word, across 3 generations and 50 years, and you watched your son's face do the exact thing your face did. And you understood, finally and completely and too late, that you are not passing down a fortune. You are passing down the glove. You go back to the palace that night. Everyone is asleep in the separate wing. You walk out to the falcons alone, and Salem is long dead, and the new keeper does not stop you, because who would stop the name? You take Najma out on your bare wrist, no glove, and her talons find the skin, and it hurts, and you carry her out past the wall, past the light, to where the desert starts, and there is nothing your family owns because no one can own that. And you lift your arm, and you open your hand, slowly, palm up, the way Salem showed you when you were 5, and you let her go. She climbs, she turns. She is a black cut in a sky the color of the inside of a shell, and for one held second she is not fed by anyone, not kept by anyone, not owned, not owed, the single free thing your family has ever touched. You stand in the sand you were pulled out of, and you do the one thing your entire life was engineered so you would never have to do. You want something. You want, with everything, for her not to come back. And she comes back. She always comes back. She lands on the arm that will bleed a little, and she settles, and she is home, and you carry her in. The Falcon was never the prisoner. You were. She was only the last thing left that could still show you the difference, and now that you have seen it, there is nothing to do with the seeing but fold your hand around it and go inside and take your seat at the head of the table in the morning. She always comes back. So do you. That was the whole arrangement, from the dune at 5 to the chair at 42, and no one ever once asked either of you.